Welcome to another episode of Lifelong Learner. This is the Out of Class edition with Ben, Janesh, and Matt. Hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Lifelong Learner. Welcome, Ben. Welcome, Matt. We're in the same room.
Yes, nice.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit left out. I'm feeling a bit like I'm missing out a little bit.
Ah, mate, this is how I felt when you two were on the couch.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true. That is true. We did do that. It's good to see you guys. It's good to see Maddie in the Summit shirt. And mate, you're doing some coaching at the moment, a bit of training with the team, bringing them up to speed.
Yes, we are staff training. So intense 4 weeks, get them ready for term one. So some highs, some lows, some confusing moments.
Some lots of honest conversations.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting when you're slightly removed versus in it. Yeah. It's exciting, tiring. It's a little bit more tiring as well. When I'm in,
He's getting older.
that's I had that thought. I had that limiting belief. Is it because I'm getting older? It's because I'm in a different role. That's what I'm realizing. When you're in and you have no choice, you just do. But when you're in an observational, meant to be guiding to other people to do, it's a little bit more taxing.
You know why I think that is, I reckon, because I see this in you guys have experienced this in coaching, is that you're holding the state. You're the one that's holding the state in the conversation, or you're setting the state for how we need to turn up, how we need to be. Not what we need to do, but how we need to be. That's your responsibility, whether it's the one-on-one or whether you're leading a group, versus when you're a participant, when you're in it, someone else is holding the state, or there's a group dynamic that's holding the state. And that takes a lot of energy, particularly if you've got to do state change. Like if there's different phases throughout your day where Rhino and I were just chatting about that. When you're this, and then you've actually got to do this role, and then you've got to go back to that role, and then you've got to go to this other role, and each requires a different state. There's a real energy to shift states. I think that can be really powerful and fun and exciting and rewarding, but it can be taxing too.
Yeah, I think that articulates it. Definitely a different kind of taxing too. I think, emotionally more drained, and I found at the end of this program less fulfilled. And I think I was trying to come to terms with that. And I think it was because, I'm one position removed. So there's two people, and my job is to guide and get them to be activating the conversations, them. And so I actually don't get the recharge from the client, because I'm supporting the boys whose job it is to make those connections. And I had to at times remind myself, if I do this, they're connected to me, and that's not supportive, because my role is actually to be connected to the two boys and they're connected to the team. So I would have to think, my instinct here, my intuition is this needs to be done, and then I'd have to ask a question and get the boys to do it, and then there wouldn't be like a recharge almost, because I'm not the one having that
End result.
Yeah, or that connection, that moment of connection. And when someone knows, you connect with them, they see, and that moment of, you see me. Tim and Liam will be having that moment of you see me, and I'd be there going, okay, they've been seen, but I'm not being seen, because it's not about me. And so, it was really cool. It really stretched me at times. And just a same thing, different role. And remembering my role has been not natural. I have to think, this isn't about you connecting. This is about you observing or giving feedback. It was a different experience. Same thing, just different. And so,
and people do that in that leadership role that you've got. That leadership of leading them to learn what they need to learn and develop the character and to try on the state that they need to try on. You're constantly having to demonstrate that. A mate of mine said that CEOs of organisations aren't really CEOs; they're CROs. chief reminder officers. And the goal is to keep reminding people on how to turn up, keep reminding people on what they need to do, keep reminding people around the vision, the mission. Where are we heading this? Where are we sailing this ship? They're chief reminder officers. And their role throughout the week is just to keep reminding people, keep reminding people. And that can be, again, super fulfilling, but it's a real job that you have to kind of put your hand up and take on, as you do, Janesh, and you do in your role, Matty.
I think it's finding different ways to remind them. Because sometimes you get, and I think, like, somewhat game theorying it and making it fun, because it can potentially get taxing, right? For people to go, I've told them like I've already told them 20 times, right? I hear that a lot. And you're like, okay, great. Did you tell them 20 times the same way? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, let's try 20 different ways and see which one works, and make it like, flip the script as opposed to being frustrating, make it a game. And go, all right, how do I crack the code on this reminder? Easier said than done. A lot of people go, oh, they should know. They should know.
And I think that's what's exhausting, is because when you're the one solving the problem, you just have a natural way of doing it, and you either get it or you fail. And if you fail, then you integrate. But when you're in that leadership role, you need to have the awareness, we've asked one way, I need to do it another way. Or you're holding space and go, this isn't how I would do it. And this is if I was doing it this way, I would call this a failure, but I've got to let them fail so they can experience it, and then they'll remember either to do it that way or not do it that way. And sometimes that causes me emotional turmoil, because I'm like, oh, I don't want them to fail there. This is a moment of connection. If we just say this word and do it like this is a win. But I had to remove myself and go, even if it's a fail, it's a win, because they'll never do it again. But it takes a lot of emotional energy, because you're like, I have my own level standard, my own perfectionism. I want things to go a certain way, and I can see it not going that way. And then I've got to let go and then come back and make that teachable. So, yeah, it's...
How are you finding teenagers? Oh, they're not teenagers. They're whatever that age range is, 18 to 25.
Yeah.
At 18 to 25 age range, which is, a huge bulk of what the summit employs. How do you find...
It's a loaded question, yeah.
How do you find... It's not loaded. How do you find their... How do you find them?
He was trying to see if he was going to put his own opinion in the question there.
Yes.
And you were really trying to keep your opinion out of that question.
To train, to coach, how do you find they turn up?
How
do you actually find them? Or
some of them are listening.
Yeah,
so
and sometimes there's this, it's a culture of, I'm making this up, right? But you hear that age range, it's a culture of, I've done my time in high school, now it's time for me to be CEO. And you've got to pay me heaps and not give me much to do, and I only want to work 30 hours a week. What is with that too, by the way, with the younger generation? They're all part-timers for some reason, it seems.
Because the other part-time, they're influencing. They're influencing. The other part-time, they're influencing and on the gram.
Yeah, on the gram. What about, and they apply for a job and then don't turn up, even for the interview, or even if they get the job, they don't show up, or they show up for a few days and go, oh, no, look, I think this is not for me anymore. What's with that? Are you noticing that, and what do you think's driving that?
Good.
Well, it's like you're in our heads, mate. You're in our heads.
The meat of it.
I've definitely seen a switch over the years, and I've had to... it cost me a lot of angst. A lot of frustration, but I've shifted expectations. Not lowered standards, but shifted expectations. and I'm aware things are of a different era, right? And work ethic is a little bit different here and there. There's priorities are definitely significantly different. So I've shifted expectations without dropping standards.
Priorities. If the priorities are different, what's the difference? What are the new priorities for the current, group of people that are now entering into that workforce, that 18 to 25-year-olds?
What did you think, Matt?
I think I feel like there's a little bit more anxiety around what they should be doing, which is almost paralysis, because they're doing something, thinking about what they should be doing, worrying about what they should be doing. Are they going to have an impact? Are they going to have a career? And sometimes it's like, you're 19, that comes, but right now this is your first job. This is where we learn some basic skills around organisation, punctuality, professionalism, how to communicate. I find that I think the problems are the same, but there's a different mentality around that period. Like I remember we were saying that often, 10 years ago, the summit would get a lot of people coming out of uni to the summit. So they've gone from school into university and studied and learnt how to be an adult, really. Learnt how to study, learnt that not everyone's going to hold your hand, that you're just you're a university student now, you're not a school student. You don't get told what to think, you get told when something's due, and you do you. Come to lectures or don't. So it's very different when you have that person coming to the summit, already know roughly who I am, at least kind of where I want to spend some of my
adult life experiences, right? They've maybe gone overseas already once or twice, or they've been full-time working for somewhere working
workers,
and then turned up. And then it's different. We were talking the other day that now it's a younger, it's that experience, whatever that be, uni, work, travel, whatever, and then they're coming here. And it's interesting because it's not like we're the rude shock awakening, right? Of like, oh, you're not going to spoon feed me? And we're a very, very, very supportive environment. And you're like, guys, you know what's it going to be like outside of here? But I think this year's staff training is actually interesting because we have a lot of returners on our team, and we've actually been able to take. It's a great opportunity to be able to take the I'm going to call them the kiddie gloves off, and really go, hey, if you want to be world class, we're ready, and you're ready. But if there's a bunch of new people, we wouldn't be ready for this. And this is the expectation. We're not holding back. And if they were brand new staff, even the level of honest conversations we were having yesterday, people wouldn't turn up today. Like we would call people out on their behaviour, on a little comment here and there, and I'm like, hey, what was that comment? Just let's talk to the group, because obviously you don't like doing that part of your job, and you've negative connotated that, and you whisper to someone, let's really bring this up. 25 people in the room, let's talk about it right now. And they're like, no, it's okay. I go, no, it's real, so let's go. Why do you feel that way? And they're like, no, my opinion's changed on it. And it was great. And I go, honestly, I don't believe you. Great. I go, we don't need to talk anymore. I go, I don't believe you. I think you're full of shit, and your opinion is still that, and you're a bit awkward right now, but that's okay. But I don't believe you.
That's the refreshing part, I guess, the silver lining with the team that's been here for a bit. So there's an acceptance that this is our culture, rise. And I think these new kids, when they come in, we're trying to teach them how to be an adult. We're trying to find what they're really good at, because they of course, this generation they have skills, but you got to find them. They're not what we're normally looking for. And some of the biggest challenges are so prevalent, they get in the way of so much of the growth. Like one of the obvious ones is fear of failure. Like these young people don't know how to take criticism and turn that from, it's perceived as a negative. There's something wrong with you. And it's like, it's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with your behaviour, you're fine, but it's the behaviour. And so
is it because we've got this culture that no one gets criticised? You can't criticise anyone. You can't give anyone critical feedback. That we, and this is talked about so much, that we have the lawnmower parent, the helicopter parent, that the schools everyone's got to be a winner. No one can be the loser. The schools protect them all the way through, and they get out at 18, not just in the schools, but parenting too, as I think shifted, and or the parents aren't at home to parent.
Why do you think that shift has happened?
And they've got hairy balls, but they're still a child. Yeah. They look like an adult, but they're still completely a child. They're doing what feels good and is good for them, or what feels good but isn't good for them. And they haven't learned to do the things that sometimes don't feel good but are going to be good for them in the long term. Mm-hmm. And that, we have parents that have put up fences to stop the child from falling rather than transition into taking the fence down and being the soft place when they fall. Mm-hmm. I know you guys do that really well when you talk about, championing and people having to, I can't remember the word, what you said was, Maddie, but take responsibility and step up that and take ownership over it, is that you're willing to let people to make the mistakes and know that at the summit, when they do, it's a safe place. Mm. But parents aren't creating that. Schools aren't creating that. Would that be a fair comment, do you think, if you're finding?
I think there's a pattern around that. There's a fear to fail because they're used to always succeeding.
Mm. But this is like notion of participation award. Yeah. Right? Like everyone gets this participation award and you're like, great, it might make you feel good and fuzzy, but fuck, life doesn't work that way. Mm. You're going to go to like a job interview and if you're not the best candidate, you're not going to get the job. Or maybe you are the best candidate, but second and third candidate has done all the rapport building, the smoozing, and someone's given a call and you're still not going to get the job. And they're like, why didn't I get the job? Why did I? Well, I don't understand. Like, I've been told for 12 years of schooling, 13 years of schooling that I'm doing great. This is good. Congratulations. Where's my congratulations award? And it's like, life doesn't work that way. And then I think probably post-COVID, where this great resignation happened, I should say, and where people go, oh no, I'm done then. They don't stick it out. They go, all right, I'm done, because they know the hiring market's really hard right now. And they go, oh, I'm just going to go name my price. You're like, you have no experience and you want 20 grand more than what we're paying, what everyone else is getting paid? Yep. I'm like, no, sorry. Okay, great. And they'll go and they know they're going to get their participation award somewhere else because the market at the moment is facing that. So I've got a question for you, Ben, because you've got older kids.
I'm asking you questions today.
Huh? I'll be asking them.
No. So you've got older children and you've what's your age range of your teams?
My kids, so Bella's...
No, your teams as well, sorry.
Oh, the
clinics. Yeah.
So I've got an older chiro, so 40, and then 20, 25. So my professional team's 40, 25, 30, 30. And then my admin teams are 25 to 20.
Okay. So first question is, why do you think schools, parents, and just general society has shifted that way? And like over recent times, like meaning in under 10 years, it's definitely moved that way. Why? Why?
Well, I think the better question is, why does it happen in Australia? Why is it happening in Western culture? Maybe the US, maybe Australia, maybe UK. Because I don't know whether it's global. I don't know whether this is a global thing. I don't know whether this would apply in China. And I don't think it applies in India and the other superpower countries that are coming up. And when we have those kind of superpower conversations, like there's a kind of general feeling out there that America is no longer in the next 10 years going to be the superpower. Because these other countries are still got a culture of, toughen the F up, do the work, start at the bottom, earn your stripes. So I think if you ask me in Australia, why do I think that's happening? I think that's happening because we have a left-wing culture that's developed in our country. It's like you say, everyone's got to be a winner, everyone's inclusive, everyone's equal, and no one can feel bad. Can't let anyone feel bad. And so we're constantly protecting people from feeling bad. You can't say anything these days without someone potentially, sexual harassment or verbal assault, or, who even knows what all the terms are for all these different things. But I think that's partly what's happening. And I think secondly, parents aren't around to raise their kids. I remember that the guy that used to own the Summit back when it was Del Hunty, Ullman, I remember he saying to me years ago, when it comes to a child, and this is biblical, of course, as well, give me a child for the first 7 years and I'll give you the man. But or woman. But Elwin said a child needs the mother for the first 7 years, doesn't really need the father. For the second 7, from 7 to 14, it needs the father, but not so much the mother. And then from the next 7, from 14 to 21, it needs the mother and father. And I think, to be honest, I think that's missing in so many families right now, where there's either not the father or there's not the uncle or the grandfather to step in at that 7 to 14 years age range when the child moves from kind of building up a map of how the game of life is played to trying it on, to testing the boundaries. There is no father, there is no lion there to roar, to bring the discipline, to push, to encourage, to ask the child to stretch in that 7 to 14 year age range. I think that's missing. And so we've got these kids that are at that 14 year age range transitioning from child into adult, physically, chemically, emotionally making that transition, but their body's shifting, but the rest of them isn't. They're staying a child. And I think that's missing.
Are you finding it as you've got a team that's like older, right? And say other departments here we have are older. Do you find what's the question? Oh, yeah. Do you find that participation culture has spread to the older generations too? Because when you brought up that, hey, we're a left-wing culture, you can't say anything out of criticism and it gets taken the wrong way. I've definitely seen certain people outside that age bracket, older than the 25. I'm like, really? And I'm like, no, that you just don't like the feedback, right? You don't like the hey, or the feedback or the accountability, right? But so that makes me go, is it age? It's more prevalent in that age, yes, but is it just a way of current times that's coming into culture at the moment across the board? What are you seeing with your team?
Look, I can't say I've really got a team. I've really got a sample size to kind of to justify a comment. I can't say I'm necessarily noticing it. I think what does come up for me, and I know that you guys do this well, but given that you have bigger teams, it maybe gets a little trickier. But when we hire for culture. We hire for who they be, not their skill. So we run group interviews, then we run our one-on-ones, and we're really asking ourselves, does this person fit in? I don't know whether they've even got the skill. I haven't even checked their resume, to be honest, but I like them as a person, and I think they've got the character that we're looking for. So if they've got the character, they can fit into our organisation. We can train them. We can give them the critical feedback. And so we hire for that. We don't hire for skill. We hire for their culture, their character.
And I think, I relate to that. The program team, for sure. On my wall, I always had high passionate staff, because I believe you can teach the other stuff, but if they come to you, you know, with that lack of enthusiasm, passion, hunger, if they don't really want to be there, it's just a job, then go get another job, because this is more than that. And I was the same, and it's not probably the same with the whole team. You can't do that for certain departments.
You do it for all full-timers though. I reckon all full-timers. Maybe not all casuals, but all full-timers for sure. And it's that there's a book, Richard something, called Attributes. Really interesting book, right? And it's attributes is like, he breaks down different attributes, and he goes, notice attributes in people, right? And you're either, sometimes you can slowly develop these attributes, but they're very hard to train, these attributes, right? It's like kind of, you can't train personality, right? You can't train passion. You can inspire passion, but you can't train it. You can't train excitement. So, and we have like it's called a gut check with some of our higher level teams and people sometimes who I coach. I say, look, they go, how do you know like this person's gonna be good? And I said, would you invite them to your family? Would you have them over for Sunday lunch? And or the other one is, would you have 2 beers with them or 2 coffees? One's a pleasantry, right? You have a beer or coffee. In Australia, you'll have a beer or coffee with anyone. But would you have 2? Would you stay for the second one? And if you're not, then there's something there. There's probably, you're not really connecting. And something you want to honour there and go, I don't know, maybe they're just not long term. And if you're okay, both parties are okay, it's not long term, then it's not long term. And it's like this gut check, and I don't think people hire that way anymore necessarily. No. And they don't ask these honest questions. And these like honest questions of like we were having yesterday is not it's not common practice to be put on the spot and go, hey, explain. Just you have that opinion, which is great, but let's have an open dialogue. We're not attacking you, but it's taken it potentially as an attack, and you're not. That doesn't happen anymore. And what we saw like around like kind of yesterday and other bits and pieces where other people defend, go in
mediocre,
and just go to make it mediocre
because they want
you just cut out then.
Saying like when you're having this open, honest conversation, and they've just gone, they say, other team members, other members of society go in and defend, and instead of this person's having this awkward conversation, we're going to rise this person up right now. Someone's like, oh no, it's okay, don't worry about it. It happens to all of us. What this person is doing, unintentionally, is pulling them back down. It's like this tall poppies, right? Yeah, it's like we're just going, no, it's all right. It happens to all of us. But don't grow, come down.
It's not tall poppy as in cut them down because if they shine, that makes me feel insecure, so I want to pull them down. It's like that. I think that was like our generation that definitely existed. I feel like or in this example, right? You've called someone out for something that they think, and it's like, well, if you think that, defend it, right? Let's hear you articulate it. Let's see the thoughts. Well, because that's not the way we want our culture to think. So it's okay for you to think that, but justify it. If you can justify it, then sure. But if you can't, then let us explain why we have a cultural idea around, feedback, or why we share the truth. And someone will jump in because they're like, oh, that's uncomfortable, that conversation. I want to make them feel better. And then we're saying, stop, because what you're actually doing is you're undermining their growth. Growth isn't meant to be pleasant. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, and often it comes from an uncomfortable conversation. If we just tell you how good you are all the time, you're not going to change anything because you don't need to. It's the uncomfortable feeling which forces you to look at what you're doing, the behavior you're producing. Do I want to feel this way? And if someone's going to come in and make you feel better with words, there's no truth here. The truth is that you said something that actually you maybe don't believe, because now that we're asking you on the spot to justify it, you're feeling very insecure about it and defensive. That feeling is going to help guide you to a new truth, evolve your thinking, possibly. But if someone rushes in to make you feel good, what we're actually doing, instead of rising and growing as a team, we're undermining each other, and we're keeping each other small. And
what comes up with me with that is a couple of things. First of all, often in an organisation we have rescuers, and they have a high need for love and connection, and so they're jumping in to kind of rescue people. They look for that. They look for someone that's kind of drowning, and they just can't wait. They're not really drowning. They're just swimming differently, but they go, "Oh no, they're drowning. I'm going to dive in and save them." And so we never give them an opportunity to kind of get their stroke, to get into
in that analogy there, it looks like they're drowning because they're transitioning from breaststroke into trying this new, more efficient, more powerful freestyle, but it looks ugly at the beginning. Save you. Never get to freestyle. Stuck with the doggy paddle and a breaststroke because someone rushed in to make them.
Like, you got to let them sink a little bit. Like, don't let them drown. I always say to our team and people I'm coaching that I won't ever let you drown, but I will 100% let you sink. But people go in to say, as you said, this save or this need for save, and they're really good at it, right? They're really good at it. So it's hard to go. And sometimes they get it good because it's like, oh, this person's going to tumble down, and all right, no, it was good timing. But it's also like, fuck, you're saving this person all the time. Let them really fail. Let them sink a little. Let their head bob underwater once or twice, and then if we need to, then let's go in. But don't go, hey, I'm tired, help. They're not really tired yet.
It feels like this is a negative thing coming out of a positive thing, because feelings are really important, how we feel. And I think this generation's got a lot of awareness around feelings, and they naturally do seem to show compassion where others of us might miss it. But the flip side is that instead of that being a superpower, it can be limiting, because we prioritize the feeling so much that, someone will rush in to make you feel good. That makes them feel good, makes this person feel good, but no one grows, which ultimately feels better. If we can grow and evolve, then our feelings change as we change. And so it feels like sometimes that's missing. And what we did yesterday, and we're fortunate, we have 4 people who are all on the same, we're clear on our intentions. So when we criticise someone, it's not to belittle you. Why would we do that? It's because we want you to grow. We want to challenge you. And it became clear to me that we have a culture and we have some leaders. You and I believe that to our core, so we can sustain an uncomfortable conversation. We know the purpose of this, and we know that it works. We know on the other side of this uncomfortable situation is growth, but there's other people that aren't sure, and because they're not sure and they're uncertain, better to just rush in and make you feel good. And it's like, it's limiting.
Do you think just in general those uncomfortable conversations in general in people's worlds aren't happening enough?
Oh, what are you talking about? You could watch. There's heaps of people that wouldn't even want to watch a little trailer of some kind of show that maybe might be against their narrative. The person with the most flexibility always wins. And so what you're doing with your team and what I do with my team is I try and increase their flexibility, and that is flexibility of choice. And so it's giving people the opportunity and asking them to try on a different choice. And if you try it on and you don't like it, all good, but don't not look at it. Take a real good look at the choice. See whether it could be a truth for you or it could be a fit for you. And if it's not, okay, but at least you know down the track that maybe that's now an option for you down the track as time shifts and as your life evolves. But when we rescue people, when we kind of dive in, when we don't allow them to try the new stroke or try the new thing on because of a fear that it's going to upset them, then we're limiting their ability to create choice and create flexibility. And I think that's what we've got. We've got a whole generation now that just don't have the flexibility They don't have the range of choices when things don't go perfectly to plan. And if you try and talk about another choice, another option, another possibility that's outside the narrative, I think in any country, any culture, it's kiboshed pretty quick. Yeah, it's suppressed pretty quick, and we saw that throughout COVID. You know, anyone that spoke out against the current government narrative around what was going on, mate, you were shut down real quick.
It's interesting because it's kind of paradoxical that a lot of the, you know, it stems from a good thing. I think it's really important to consider people's feelings, but it's just, it also can become the very opposite. You know, it takes away an opportunity to feel by rushing in, or, you know, sometimes that tough love, that, you know, not giving them the answers forces them to grow. It's like the intention, it's almost like there's a confusion around the intention almost. It's so curious that we're opening you up to millions of possibilities. We're not actually limiting you. We're saying you can be anything. But to be anything, you've got to be able to sustain uncomfortability. You've got to persevere through those feelings of uncomfortable, doubt, fear. And it's you're doing it. That's super empowering. And you can still be conscious of other people's feelings and communicate in a way that is supportive. But I think, we've somewhere along the line we've got confused, and so now the thing that could propel us forward is actually limiting us because we're so concerned around people's feelings that we're not prioritizing ourselves. We're not focused on ourselves, our own growth. Like, I'll rush in and make you feel better.
Yeah, but by doing that, it's counterintuitive. Like, you're doing it out of a love and compassion for that person, but you're actually doing them an injustice.
Yeah, you're limiting them, unknowingly limiting them, because real love and compassion
would encourage that conversation.
Got it. You're drowning. And I'm not going to rush in unless you really need me. And this is making me uncomfortable, but I love you enough to believe that you got this. You can do.
You guys teach that though with your coaches. You know, I've done your program a number of times, and when you're up on the platform and you're about to jump out to the trapeze, and you know, if I balk, if I start to go, no, I don't think I can, you don't go, mate, that's okay, come down.
Yeah.
I get you feeling bad. You know, come on, Ben.
Come down. Yeah, I got a muffin for you.
It's like, no, you've got this, and then silence. You let people experience the emotion, because that emotion on the edge of that platform, that's where all the magic is. If we took away that emotion, if we push them off the platform, if someone held my hand and jumped with me off the platform, it's not the same as me completely embracing the feeling and processing the feelings and making the leap. I'm conscious of time, so I want to ask you two questions. Maddie, I want to ask you the question. If you were head of Schools Australia, if that existed, and you could make some policy change that would cause a shift in our culture as kids are coming through as teenagers and graduating from high school, what policies would you put in? And Janesh, if you were head of Parents Australia, imagine that. You had an organisation that helps parents be great parents. You were head of Parents Australia, and you could put some policies in place to help parents be better parents to transition their children into adults. What policies would you put in place? Top three.
Top
Such a
three.
big question.
What do you reckon, Matty? What would you put into place in schools?
I got one of your school ones.
If the world was like it was in 2019, I've always thought that mandatory form of travel. So when you finish school, create this culture of, all right, you're on your own, off you go. Go experience the world. 1 year. 1 year of off you go. Experience different cultures. You have to do it. I really believe that just the way travel is, and independently as well.
Like a mandatory gap year.
Yeah, mandatory gap year. Because I know for me, I know for a lot of the young people I've seen who've done that, they learn so much of what life is actually about in that year. and they learn from so many different people that they can't blame one person and say, no, this isn't how it is. The truth comes out. If they've got issues they've got to solve, it keeps coming up. They keep meeting different people, but that problem keeps following them. So eventually they have to turn and look at themselves, and inevitably it ends up producing the work. There's self-reflection, always come back better, always. So something around that. And I think that's what we're missing in our society. Back in, hundreds of years, thousands of years, in many cultures, there was always this passage of, the hero's journey, or the transitioning, that ritual of young men, 14, would go off and have to live off the land for a month and come back, and they'd either live or die, in some of those, not Roman, what were they? The Spartan culture. I think we're missing that period, that thing that they do by themselves. No one does it for them, and they come back empowered. I did this, and I learnt this from the world. Definitely. That's one. You got a parent one while I think of another?
I think on that too, Matty, there's a lot of not cultures, but a lot of countries where military service kicks in.
Yeah.
You finish high school and there's military service, and whilst there's some negatives possibly in that, there's some positives. It's like, hey, this is toughen the fuck up. Like, we have some rules and regulations, and you're going to do stuff that's uncomfortable, and not everyone's a winner.
Yeah, and I completely am against so many aspects of that, but not the rituals, not the discipline, not the make your bed and bounce a quarter off it. That's good. Like, press your clothes, clean your clothes, be organised, brotherhood, teamwork, actually put yourself on the line for someone else.
Yeah.
Oh, I admire that. And I see and have met people travelling who've done some of those mandatory, army, whatever it's called. Yeah. And you see that. That's the same process. There's this resilience, emotional, mental, and they've learnt from their mistakes, and they've had someone who isn't their parent, just be brutal and be blatant. I think that's the key thing, that the truth gets disguised. We're so good at lying to ourselves to make ourselves feel better, and people are as well. So the truth gets lost, and without the truth, then how do you really make change if you don't have that? So I agree. I think that it doesn't have to be travel. Anything that forces them to have to practice some of these life skills external from their family and their friends, so they're getting information from very many different sources, that fundamentally produces really positive change, I think. So that would be one thing.
All right, so
you don't have to be politically correct either.
I know. I say this as if I know I don't practice these things. It'd be good now saying it out open and to put it into practice. I would say, as you said before, being about putting fences up everywhere, I would take fences away earlier, and due to that, encourage two-way honest conversations. So it is the norm. It's the norm on two-way honest conversations from a young age. So then when you have it later, hopefully that it's not hard. When they leave the home, they have these honest conversations. It's not hard. They know how to receive an honest conversation really well, and they know how to give one as well. And I say that in terms of, you look at businesses ask for feedback, right, for their clients all the time, right? How often do parents ask, say, their client, their child, how do you think I'm doing? Rate me. We never do. Sometimes we don't want to hear it. We're not ready for it. And we always will give that feedback downwards, but we never want it back. And it's an interesting way to go, because they end up getting taught to potentially receive it, but not to give it. I would say to encourage that early and have the honest conversation where you go, I know what your intention is. Your intention is this, but at the moment you're throwing yourself a pity party and it's not getting you anywhere. And I'm not going to help you. I love you, but I'm not going to help you right now. And then I don't think that happens enough. There'll be either reprimand or and it doesn't, they don't go, oh, they don't love me, blah, blah, or that's like I'm going to love you so much. By me loving you, I'm going to do it for you, or I'm going to let you run amok and give you this freedom, and you are this spoiled brat, this obnoxious kid, and you're like, oh, you know what, when you grow up and no one's pulled you a line, you're going to get some real-time feedback. You're either harder to make friends, to move away, or someone will go, you are really, really obnoxious and rude, and we don't like your company. And they'll be like, what do you mean? Right? And they haven't heard that honesty before and had that feedback. So, yeah, I would say encouraging honest two-way conversations early.
I got one more, because when we met up with Paul is a head of a department, teacher in a school. One other one that I think is really important that maybe school isn't doing, and that's the idea that teach a lesson, learn the content, pass the test. That's just not how life works, and that's why I've always liked this environment. It's test first, then the lesson comes when you reflect upon how you went. So I think that needs to be put into the curriculum. That should be a priority. Let's teach for life. Let's not teach to regurgitate information, to not critically think. It doesn't make sense in this world now when I can get every single answer to any question in 2 seconds. The answer isn't important. It's the process of discovery. It's being able to experience, reflect, and then use that information to do better next time. And I think we need to start building curriculums that do that empower people to use how I'm feeling to produce a better result in their life. And I've got this culture of someone will teach you something, you just memorize it and give it back. And we've seen some of the challenges with that thinking, because people don't think for themselves, they just follow. And you want people who can follow, but because they've thought about it and it makes sense, not because someone's told them to do it. So again,
it's like lack of critical thinking.
Yeah, we need to teach that again. Yeah. To think. That's basically it. Common sense and critical thinking, and create situations where they have to do that. I think is really important, and I really believe with probably those things. I think you can end up with a lot more resilience, empowerment, and that concept that I'm forever changing. I can change myself. That's such a powerful place to be in, that I can educate myself. I can learn knowledge. It has to come down from somewhere. I think.
I got a question for you, Ben. What's one thing do you think every workplace, community, club, organisation need to have mandatory part of their induction training?
You say that word mandatory and I still flinch.
It is like a non-negotiable that you go, you know what, it doesn't matter what industry. Doesn't matter if you're a volunteering coach at a community football club. Doesn't matter if you've just joined a little arts club, to a business, to a Fortune 500. I'm listed and I'm the new CEO, or I'm onboarding as an intern. What do you think is the most important thing that needs to be part of induction?
Well, the quick answer that comes up for me is something that we doing even during our group interview process. We do it with our one-on-one interviews, and I was talking to someone about this yesterday. We start setting the culture in the job ad that we place. The job ad reflects the culture. Then when we call you, it reflects the culture. And then when you come for the group interview reflects the culture, the expectation. To the point then when you're onboarding, we talk about the culture and the expectations. And something that we do is this idea of constantly asking, what's your great and improve? So in the group interview, at the end, we'll go around the room and go, just give me one thing you did great in the interview today and one thing you would improve upon next time. Great and improve, great and improve. So self-reflection on where have I done well. That's awesome. And where could I improve? Where's there been a learning in this last hour of group interview? I do that with my chiro team. I do with my front desk team. I'll get to the end of the day and I'll go, how was your day? And I'll go, great. How do you know? How do you know?
I think that's where we're crossing over, right? We're all agreeing on self-reflection is something that's missing, that ability to truthfully reflect and not belittle yourself, reduce yourself, be mean to yourself, but be honest. And then you can move forward because once you're honest, you know where you are, and then you can work out where you want to be, and then you can just set goals to get there. But if you're not being honest, if you're not being truthful and you're not reflecting, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's what we're teaching, right? We're teaching them to reflect. Run your day and write down what went really well, what was shocking. There's always going to be something. And what will you do differently tomorrow? And just change one thing a day. And over a year, you're a completely different person.
Yep. And really that's then putting it back to kind of an answer to your question. So what's great and what's improved? I'm not telling you what was great and improved. You're telling me. And you've got to look for an improve. You've got to look for where you weren't the superstar, where you weren't omnipotent, like where you did slip up, where there was a boo-boo, and owning that.
And communicating it.
Like, I did this really well, but John, he stuffed that up, and because of that, I was, no, where's your improve? Where's mine?
Yeah.
Good question, mate.
Yeah.
It makes me think of a quote, and I was looking.
Do you give us your wrap up quote.
And I'm going to tweak it a little bit, but it's you can't change what happens to you, but you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And I think that's where our power is. We've got a lot, possibly a culture coming through of I can't control what happens to me, so let's do whatever makes me feel good. Versus, taking ownership and saying, all right, this is happening. How can I respond in a way that's going to get me a better result? It's going to make me feel better. There's this action that comes from this uncomfortable feeling, as opposed to someone rushing in and going, oh, you're doing a great job.
Janesh, your summary, nice one, Matty. Nice.
Good. I would say lead some of those honest conversations through leading by example and kind of bridging what Ben was saying about self-reflect. Like when I think we were saying people don't have this human aspect anymore. And what I mean human aspect is like a vulnerability, a flaw. They don't talk about their flaws. They don't want to talk about how they improve. So if you start saying, hey, look, I own this, this is how I can improve, it makes an honest conversation coming to you a lot easier. When you go, oh, hey, look, I am this, and vice versa, it's easy to deliver one. And I think that would be my takeaway of trying to encourage that more. And by encouraging it, just leading by example.
Own it is the key there, and that's tied to truth, isn't it? That's what we're saying, that if you don't have the truth, you can't make change, and you're saying own it, whatever it is. This is my reality and I accept it. And then you can make a change. Benny, what are your last thoughts?
Oh, look, I think when you decide to give birth to a child, remember that it comes with a great responsibility, and that the responsibility as a parent is not to raise your child. It's to raise an adult. We're in the business of raising adults as parents, not raising children. And remember that is the most important thing, is how we're raising the next generation. And I would say that for the parents, and I would say that for the step-in parents, which are our teachers out at our schools. Remember that you're there to raise adults, not to raise children.
I think that works for everyone, right? You're talking to two people who work with young people straight out of school. Our job isn't to to raise. We're doing the transfer from adult to critical thinker, individual, a valued member of society. We all can relate to that. I think that's brilliant. Parent, teacher, you know, what do we call you?
Person, mate. I identify as a person.
Yeah, okay. That's another episode.
We didn't have quite as much fun. This was quite a serious episode, listeners. So I apologise if you're used to just us crapping on and having a good laugh. But I hope it triggered something and it's left you thinking, because it was. This is the most serious episode, I think.
I know. Usually we have some banter.
Next week there'll be plenty more banter.
We didn't even talk about New Year's Eve, us all spending all time together and all that by the beach.
Yeah, I didn't talk about the hydrofoil nearly taking my head off.
Yeah.
You cut in my wetsuit.
I know.
You got cut in the wetsuit. I got clipped in the neck.
All right, fellas.
All right.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks,
Till
guys.
next time. Thanks for listening to another episode of Lifelong Learner. If you like this episode and want to know more and hear other episodes, head over to lifelonglearnerpodcast.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter, where you'll be the first to know when new podcast episodes come out. And if you want to say hello, tell us a joke, or ask us a question, send us an email at hello@lifelonglearnerpodcast.com. Thanks again.